Do you want to talk about your mental health? Well, you've come to the right place. I'm your host. You can call me Horse. Why the long face?
Hello, and you're very welcome back to another episode of Why the Long Face. I am, of course, Horse. That is still a very hard thing to say. I am, of course, Horse. Doesn't matter. I'm joined in the studio, as always, by my best friend, Mr. Jamban O'Connor. He can't say hello, his microphone isn't on yet. Anyway, lads, you might possibly notice that I actually seem to be in great form. The reason why is this week I have conquered one of the biggest fears that has kind of been holding me back for a good chunk of my adult life. So, I did my first driving lesson on Monday. I've been terrified of driving basically since I've been old enough to drive, and kind of people have been like, oh, you're going to get your license. I'd be like, yeah. In the background, I've been absolutely shitting myself. But I had my first driving lesson, and it went incredibly, incredibly well. The instructor basically said that I'm like a man who has 5 or 6 lessons done. I ended up driving up the main road. I went round the roundabout. We drove country roads, and I didn't crash or scratch or have a oh shit moment even once. So, if anything, I was driving too fast. I did drive 75 kilometers in a 60 kilometer zone. But anyway, that doesn't matter. The point is, for this week, is like conquering your anxieties, but also not forcing yourself into situations until you're ready to, and kind of striking that balance. So, again, for anyone who is new, I've struggled with anxiety for quite a long time, and driving was one thing that has always just, like I've said, scared the absolute bejesus out of me. And to be honest, I'm not even entirely sure why. I mean, I wouldn't even call it a car crash. I was in a tip when I was 14, 15, and that kind of made me nervous in cars, but I don't necessarily think, or to my knowledge, it wasn't at the forefront of my brain when I thought about driving. But I suppose that's how anxiety works, is that sometimes it's not something major that you think about, it's something small that you only think of in passing, but in the background it's niggling away at you. And then I suppose with my grandfather dying after, or he was hit by a car, and that kind of again re-cemented this fear of driving and this fear of kind of causing that damage to someone else's family, kind of a thing. So my anxiety wasn't that I would crash and harm myself. My anxiety was that if I'm driving, I'll crash and I'll kill someone, and then I'll affect the family the same way that my family was affected. So I suppose it's not that my anxiety or my fear wasn't justified. However, I am willing to admit that I did let the fear control me for too long. My grandfather died in 2019. It is now 2023, and I've only just done my first driving lesson. And after the lesson, it was one of the first thoughts I had was, Jesus, that wasn't, one, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. 2, I seemed to be, for one driving lesson, I seemed to be relatively okay at driving. What was I so worried about? Now, that I suppose is a healthy and unhealthy thought at the same time. 1, yes, it's healthy to realise that when you have anxiety over something, you normally blow it up to be 100 times worse than the situation actually is. But again, I'd like to think that I was relatively justified in what I was thinking. So I suppose, lads, if you have your own anxieties over whatever it is, it's about being realistic with yourself and kind of thinking, okay, yes, maybe these fears are justified in regards to whatever it is your experiences in life have been, but are you letting it control you? You know, I live in a country town. I need to drive if I want to get anywhere. Also, this week I have been laid off in my job, and so I'm kind of in this awkward situation of, okay, I need to find another job now, but jobs that I want, or jobs that I'm kind of qualified to do, don't come up as often here, because it's a smaller country town where, you know, like sales jobs, and especially sales within tech or any sort of social media jobs, just aren't really a thing. And because of the fact that I don't drive, I'm very limited, so I'm going to have to try and find something that works for me. But there's also kind of a chance that I might have to just, you know, be a government artist and draw the dole for a while, because I'm very limited in my options. So And little things like the fact that I've not gotten my license for this long. On my days off, I'm very limited to what I can do or where I can go, if anywhere at all. You know, I can't just decide of a day, oh, do you know what, I'm going to go into the city, or I'm going to go to the beach, or I'm going to, you know, these things for me take a lot more planning because of the fact that I don't have my own mode of transport. But saying that, going back to my point that I in general do not like the phrase, get up and get on with it. Because I think in general, when that phrase is used in relation to mental health, it's generally coming from an older generation where you're trying to explain to them like your mental health situation, and that's literally is their first reaction is, oh, for God's sake, stop being soft, get up and get on with it. In those situations, no, get up and get on with it. That is the worst thing you can possibly say. However, if you're like me and you've had a fear or anxiety for going on years and years that is genuinely holding you back, in those situations, yes, I do agree, get up and get on with it is possibly the best advice. Like, I was so bad with my anxiety over driving. I've had my provisional license since January. So I did the theory test, I got the license sent out, the whole lot. It's now fucking July. No, yeah. And I've only just done what is it? Oh, it's June. Yeah, there you go. I was wondering why James was shaking his head. Anyway, it's as far away from January is my point, and I've only just done my first lesson. I've had the guy's number, I would say, since March. I have written out text messages to him multiple times, and when it comes to actually hitting that send button, it's like my whole body freezes. I come out in a sweat, my breathing goes all fucking weird, and I genuinely could not just send that message. And what kind of the final nail in the coffin for me was, I did go for a job interview a few weeks ago, and the job interview was going very, very well. They were very impressed with all my social media and all my skills, and they were really, really looking to work with me. And then it was just like, oh, by the way, do you drive? Because the general assumption is that at 25 years of age, I would be driving. And when I said no, that kind of just fucked the whole thing. It was kind of like, oh, okay, well, look, if you can get on the road, come back to us. I have also, because of my own anxieties and because of the COVID and how that decided to fuck up the world for a bit, I'm in a situation now where, because there's such a massive backlog, I'm looking at least March 24 before I'll even possibly be called for a test. If I can do my 12 lessons, if I can get one every week, that'll bring me up to middle of September. And there's still at least a 6-month waiting list. So by letting my anxiety control me, yeah, fair enough, how was I to know that there was going to be a worldwide pandemic that would shut down the world for 2 years? But because of that, I am now in a even more awkward situation to try and get on the road. So you do have to have a sit down with yourself, have a chat with yourself about where your anxiety is at. Try and figure out what it is that's causing it, and be realistic with yourself and kind of figure out, okay, have I let this go on too long? Am I letting this decision control me? Is this decision holding me back from a lot of better opportunities in life? We'll take a break now from me shiting on about how much of an amazing driver I am. We're going to do everyone's favourite, or at least my favourite, movie of the week.
I watched the film this week, I ain't gonna talk about it. Movie of the week.
So lads, I'll always try and keep the movie of the week at least somewhat kind of connected to the topic that I'm discussing. This week, I don't think I could have got it any closer, so I'm going talking about Fast X. I know it sounds like a porn film, but it's not. It is the 10th film in the Fast and Furious franchise. Now, any franchise that goes on for 10 movies is kind of pushing it. Is this pushing it? Fucking absolutely. Is it a good movie? No. But I would still highly recommend that you watch it, because it is 2.5 hours of absolute mindless fucking nonsense where you can just shut your brain off. Fair enough, it's not a good movie. The dialogue is the fucking cheesiest shit I have heard in my entire life. Vin Diesel it seems every movie he makes, he's getting harder and harder to understand. You can barely even work out the word anymore when he's saying it. Like, it's ridiculous. And like the action and what they're managing to do with cars is... I don't even have words. I genuinely don't even have words. I'm trying not to spoil anything by explaining what actually happens. But yet you're watching it and you're smiling and you're laughing. No, you might be laughing at it rather than with it. But I can guarantee one thing. Jason Momoa's character, he plays the villain. He is extremely fun to watch. Because you can just tell that it's very different to other performances he's given. And two, you can tell he is just loving life playing this character. He's just so... He's not at all what you'd expect, I suppose, for a villain in the Fast and Furious. They're generally kind of very one-dimensional, kind of, fuck the world, I hate everything, but I hate family more. Whereas he's just genuinely batshit crazy. So if I was to give it a score out of 10, you probably wouldn't want to know, because it'd be quite low. But I would still highly, highly recommend that you watch it. There's enough shit going on in the world at the moment, lads. I think sometimes all we genuinely need is to just shut our brain off and watch some absolute mindless nonsense for 2.5 hours. So if you can find Fast X anywhere, be careful where you search it for one thing, because like I said, it does sound like a porno. But if you can find the actual version, I would genuinely give it a watch. We're going to move on to what realistically probably actually is the fan favourite segment. So, he'll put turf in your chimney and he once crashed a chimney. It's time for Jambon's Corner.
Thanks once again for having me back for another Jambon's Corner. As you have successfully completed your first driving lesson this week, I wanted to keep things a bit car themed. So, my question is, on an unlimited budget, you have to choose 3 cars in the following categories: an everyday run-around car, a vintage car, and a car from a movie. What are you picking?
Firstly, are you going to acknowledge that you crashed the chimney, or are we just moving swiftly past that?
Can I just say that crash, if that's what you want to call it, was not my fault. A tractor that was hauling bales refused to give me any sort of space, and I had no choice but to ditch the car and get another tractor to pull the car out of the ditch. So, look at shit happens, and I can't wait to make fun of your first accident.
Right, so unlimited budget, daily driver, a vintage car, and a car from a movie. I'm a big fan of an old estate.
Right.
I'd take one of the Audi A6 estates, because I think they're fucking gorgeous.
Why an estate over saloon?
I don't know. I just get a tingle for estates. No idea why. But if I was to get like a smaller little run around, you know what? I'd actually take a Mini Cooper. I just think they're nice. Like you can make them nice. No body kit and stuff on them. Like
that's the British passport coming out. You know? Have you seen some of them? Some of them going around Ireland on Irish plates with the Union Jack brake lights on the back of them.
Yeah, you see, there's no need for that.
I mean, come on now, like.
I might have a British passport, but I'm not that bad. I wouldn't go around with the Union Jack up on top of the roof of the Mini Cooper either, like.
I hope not.
Anyway, moving on to the vintage. Again, I'm a huge fan of the old vintage Mini Coopers. I wouldn't mind an Escort.
How much would she be?
Wow, the fuck. No. I don't know, see, vintage, I spend more of my time on Dundee looking at vintage cars than I do looking at cars that I can realistically afford and drive. I really like they're an old Citroen DS they're called, and they've got like mad suspension in each wheel. They're not even really a nice looking car, but there's just something about them I'm just like, oh, that's kind of cool. Or an old Volkswagen Beetle. Oh, I don't know. No, do you know what I'd take? I'd take an old 69 Ford F-150 pickup truck.
What would you need a pickup truck for?
I wouldn't, but I have unlimited budget. I can buy one and bring it over and do what I want with it. I like pickup trucks too.
Okay.
Car from a movie, like, the nerd in me is just saying Batmobile, Tim Burton's Batmobile from Batman 89. But like, obviously that's not very realistic to drive. on the roads. I would have to say, in Transformers 4, Bumblebee is a 69 Chevy Camaro, and it's got like wide bodied on the back and big fat old wheels on it, and it's fucking gorgeous, and it's got like a black and yellow colour job on it. That's what I'm going for.
Okay.
What about yourself? Same again, unlimited budget now. Daily driver, vintage car from a movie.
Daily driver is a Ford Focus RS. Done up, but done up tastefully, I would say. Not one of these mad colours, mad loud buys. Something you can tip around in, but will get you into Dublin in 45 minutes. Vintage.
Old Morris Minor.
An old MG midget. No. Some of the BMWs from the 80s. The ones that have kind of like the narrow nostrils on them.
Yeah, the kind of grill on them.
The grill on them, yeah. Some of those are really cool. I don't know enough about cars to tell you what exact model or whatever, but I think are they like the E series or something, BMWs. And a car from a movie. Seeing as you said Transformers, I'm going to pick the Optimus Prime truck. Because I think it'll just be gas to be
driving around a big fucking Peter liner, just going fucking.
Yeah. Like, can you imagine if you saw the full decked out Optimus Prime truck on its way between Bancha and Cahir?
You wouldn't get up your road to your home house in that truck.
Oh, and you can barely get up the road to my house on foot.
Well, that's fair enough too. See, I'd have thought now for a movie car, you'd have gone with an old James Bond something or other.
No, the Optimus Prime one is a bit tongue-in-cheek, to be fair. The DB5 from Skyfall. With the machine gun headlamps.
Oh, yeah.
Because sometimes you're just sick of the traffic in a day and need to get things moving.
See, what I find funniest about that is the idea of someone seeing the Aston Martin pulling up, and in their own head they're hearing the James Bond theme, and then you step out with your blue jeans and a Limerick GA jersey on you. How's it going? What?
Can you imagine? I have my...
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Me with my prescription sunglasses, and I'm like wiping off the crumbs of a sausage roll I had on the way down in the car.
Walks into the pub. Find the Guinness there, don't fucking shake it.
Pint of Guinness, do it right.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Have you shown up to a casino somewhere in an old check shirt, buttoned down to under my nipples?
Have we changed for tenner?
Sorry, where's your fag machine? I'm looking for 20 Benson hedges there, please. And a lighter. Good man you are. You wouldn't throw the match on the telly there, would you? Fair play to you. Anyway, thanks for having me on. It's been a delight as always to be here for Jambon's Corner.
No problem. And hopefully I won't have an accident anytime soon that I can update you on.
Fingers crossed.
So lads, we're going to leave it there for this week. I know that this podcast was slightly shorter than normal. Originally, I had recorded a podcast during the week, and then my laptop decided to shit itself, and the entire hour's worth of recording that I had done had disappeared. And then I was like, oh, it's okay because I'm going to have a guest on. And then the guest had to cancel last minute due to some unforeseen circumstances. So, look, unfortunately, it is what it is, but we still managed to get something out for you this week. Now, I am hoping that the next podcast won't be in 2 weeks' time. It'll actually be next week. So I'm hoping that my guest will be able to reschedule for early next week. So you'll actually have a podcast tomorrow as of the time of recording, and then next Thursday as well, hopefully, to make up for the fact that this week's podcast was slightly shorter. But yet I hope you still took something from it. Whether it's that specifically anxiety over driving, or just anxiety in general, and kind of trying to figure out, are you controlling your anxiety? Is your anxiety controlling you? Whereabouts within the situation are you currently? So again, lads, just before I do go, don't forget that we have another segment on the podcast that we like to throw in as much as we can. It's called Straight from the Horse's Mouth, and it's basically where listeners will send in a message or a question or anything at all that they'd like me to discuss, and we read it out and then we discuss it. Like I said, it can literally be, it can be a question around mental health. It can be, horse, what's your favourite dinner? It doesn't really matter what it is. It's just my way of interacting with you, your way of interacting with me. So, if you do want to get involved for the next podcast, please either pop your question or your topic or whatever it is into an email and send it to whythelongfacepod@gmail.com, or follow Horse O'Keefe on Instagram and pop me a DM there. So that's the end of it, lads. We'll finish up now. Like I said, hopefully we will have a podcast, an extra special podcast, next Thursday. So follow me on all my other social medias to find out all the updates on that. There's Horse O'Keefe on TikTok, Horse O'Keefe on Instagram, Horse O'Keefe on YouTube. Take it handy for yourselves, lads. Don't be putting too much pressure on yourself now. I don't want you to get what I've been saying mixed up either. There is a fine line, there's a fine balance when it comes to anxiety and overthinking things. All you need to do is have a sit down and have a think about it and try and figure out whereabouts on your journey that you are. Don't be hard on yourself. Take it handy. And most importantly, mind yourselves.